Hi, I'm Eddie Wu, and it is an absolute joy and privilege to be part of the Creator Capsule project. It feels completely surreal to be part of the historical cultural collection that the National Film and Sound Archive is. I grew up in Australia at a time where actually I felt and I was told and I internalized that I was not Australian, despite the fact that this is where I was born and raised, and this is the only place I have ever lived or known. That was difficult as a young person, and it's literally taken me decades to try and work out my own identity and where I sit. And when you're the child of migrants, you kind of don't ever belong anywhere. You might go back home to where your parents are from, and especially when you've got a voice like mine, you don't sound anything and you can't speak the language and you absolutely feel like a foreigner. And then you come back to the place which you grow up, and you look different, you sound different, all of those things. Being part of the National Film and Sound Archive as someone who has taken a long time to appreciate and own my own identity as an Australian just feels like an absolute privilege that no one necessarily deserves, but I feel extremely honored by. So it's really quite bizarre, but wonderful. Necessity is the mother of invention, and the first moment where I thought I could, maybe I should, record my everyday classroom lessons was because there was a student of mine who fell very ill. He was going to go through very acute cancer treatment, and I knew that for him, if all I did was, here's chapter 5 of the textbook, here's the exercises we're going to go through, try and keep up and read the materials, and then we will pick up when you get back to school. I just felt like that would be such a tremendously inadequate thing to say to that student. And I thought, look, technology's come a little way now. This phone in my pocket, it can grab some footage, and I quickly took it into my classroom. I gave it a quick test to see, like, can you actually read what's on the blackboard at this time if I gave this a go? And so I began doing this really with no illusions that anyone beyond this one student would find this useful in any way. And it's been a delightful surprise that it's actually gone way beyond him. And obviously now, years later, it's something that's been a fantastic resource for people around the world. I think that my channel became a thing in probably two different phases. One of them was when the other students in my class, because they were all there when I was filming, they themselves were the ones who told me, oh, we'd love to see them. Can you give us the links as well? And I said, go for your life, right? And the second stage happened when I was at a local butcher, and as the young boy over the other side of the counter said, is there anything else? I said, no, it's fine. If you just wrap that up for me, that'd be great. And he said to me, oh, that'll be $12.99. And as I was rummaging around in my pockets, he kind of looked at me a little funny, and I didn't know what to make of that. But when he came back with my receipt, he said, you aren't a maths teacher by any chance, are you? And it was such a weird, why are you asking me this question? Where on earth does this come from? And I said, yes. And he said, because I think I've seen your videos online. My friend sent them to me. And I was just so flabbergasted at that point that somehow this chain of interactions, which it had never dawned on me would happen, that obviously someone in my class had passed it on to a friend, who passed it outside of the school, and somehow had come to this individual. That was when I started to realize, right, this seems to have legs that I did not ever anticipate it would, and is then sort of mushroomed from there. I'm delighted that there's representation of educational content within this Creator Capsule because YouTube is one of the biggest learning platforms in the world. I love that as an educator, my impact gets to spread beyond my one classroom, and that it's a larger part of the trend for people to take control of their own learning. I'm not just a person being taught, I am a learner. I want to develop this knowledge and skill for myself. That's the thing that every teacher prizes and is aiming at. So if my videos on YouTube can be a part of that and we can preserve that this is what we want all of our society and culture to aspire to and to own for themselves, I think that's amazing.